Thank you, Colton. I think we're ready to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum of at least 5 members present between those online and here. Tracy Clark, is she online, Colton?
It looks like everybody that's here is on the panelist side.
Okay, so she's not. Okay. Okay. And I don't believe we had an on-site packet for APRN. That's correct. Okay. Any additions or revisions to the agenda? Okay. Announcements. I would like to make one announcement. There is a new KSBN staff member here. If you, Andrew, if you would like to introduce yourself to the committee.
My name is Andy Martin, and I'm the Public Information Officer for the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I'm on day 25.
You're not counting, are you?
And I'm loving working here. I'm really grateful. You have a really great team of people with Carol and Adrian, and there's this really great Director of Nursing Compliance that recruited me to come work here. She's my wife. So, I'm really proud to be a part of the team and the work you're doing here today. So look forward to learning with you all.
Great, thank you. Okay. First item is approval of the minutes from December 10th, 2024.
This is Michaela. I move to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Michaela.
This is Kim. I'll second.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor can signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries and the minutes are approved. Next up is APRN programs approved for licensure. And I believe I just jumped through the pages. There's only one. It is on page 6. University of West Florida. Any discussion about this? Okay, during no discussion, do we want to make a motion to approve this?
It's Kim. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Kim. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify with a yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oppose or abstentions? Okay, motion carries. On to our unfinished business, starting with prescription monitoring committee report.
And Tracy is not here. Yes.
Oh.
So I don't know anything. Nothing's been reported to me. And she's not here to report back.
Okay, and Tracy's not online, correct, Colton?
Still not
No.
seeing them. If they show up on the attendee side, I'll move them over.
Okay. Okay, well, we will just table that to our June meeting. Unless someone else had a report from that committee. Okay, next item on unfinished was update on the CNM1 regulations.
And I've not heard anything new from the Board of Healing Arts about these. And so they're kind of the ones that are they're kind of the ones that start all of this, and something to report. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, next up is implementation of KAR 60-17-101 through 109, which starts on page 7.
Okay, this is Carol, and I put these in there so that you see, the final ones here. These did have an implementation date of February 7th. The board adopted these in January, so we finished through the process. Probably the biggest question that's come up from across the country, not just Kansas, is, the 750 clinical hours, and how does that impact people that are in programs right now? Okay, so we looked at some clarification. Remember, these are for curriculum of programs that are approved by us in Kansas. We can't tell out-of-state programs what kind of curriculum they have to have. And then the other part of this is they have to have this for licensure in Kansas. So again, our board has the authority to look at licensure in Kansas and what are the requirements. So the interpretation right now is for anybody who has started an APRN program before March 1st of 2025, they will be required to have 500 clinical hours when they seek licensure. So in other words, we're going to be looking at everybody's transcripts, figuring out when they started the program, and that's going to be the key there. For anybody who starts the program March 1st, 2025 or after, they will have to have 750 clinical hours for licensure. So I've got a lot of phone calls about this, even to the point of an out-of-state program asked me why we didn't send a letter to every APRN program in the nation to tell them about this change. And I'm like, well, number one, I wouldn't even know who they were. Again, we're not telling the out-of-state programs that this is what they have to do. We don't have authority over the out-of-state programs. But we do have authority for what they've completed when they're seeking licensure in Kansas. So I've tried to help people to understand that our board does have the authority to decide licensure requirements. And I've also tied part of it back to, full practice authority. We have no practice hours. Other states may have practice hours, so not every state's the same about that. Not every state's the same about full practice authority, as we all know. So it probably makes sense then that not every state's going to be exactly the same on their education requirements and stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest question that I've got, but it seems like if we've clarified, the ones who have started the program before March 1st, and then the ones who started March 1st or after. And then we've had questions about the postgraduate certificate programs. Okay, the thing to remember about those is typically those students in those programs are already licensed as an APRN. Okay, so they already have an APRN license. When they complete that post-certificate program, they're not seeking another licensure. They're adding a specialty. Okay, and this 750, that's not just adding a specialty. So just try to remember that. And those seem to be the biggest thing for clarification. And then we're going to hear under new business, another consideration and request for clarification that will come forward. So we'll talk about that then. That's going to be underneath there. So I hope that kind of clarifies things for people. It's been a process. Okay.
Any
Can I ask a
discussion?
question? Have we heard any feedback from the schools in Kansas? Are they giving any pushback on the 750 hours?
Well, we talked to those before we went down this path, and there was only one who did not have that. And they were already planning to add to get up to 750. So I don't think that's been a problem, to my knowledge.
Okay, I was just sitting here thinking of someone, did get their license and then came here and couldn't get it, if there was a program where they could sign on, pay for, get another 250 hours so that they could then get licensed here.
Okay, let me just clarify. They're licensed in another state and they're coming here.
Yeah, but
Okay.
assuming they started after the March 1st, 25, like, is there a program where they can come here and then do clinicals for like 250 hours to get up to those numbers for licensures? Do we know if anything like that exists yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's fine. I like the March 1st, 2025. That seems pretty reasonable to me.
And that's their start date of school. So if they're
Yeah.
already in a program, they only have to meet the 500 requirements. I know of some schools in Missouri where they don't have the 45 credit hour requirement, but if they know that their student is going to be coming to Kansas to practice, it's a 42-hour program. They offer a 3 credit elective they can take to meet the requirements in Kansas. So I could foresee down the road. I mean, since this is so new and it would only be students starting programs after March 1, down the road, it could change. Janelle, oh, Kelly.
Just the postmaster's certificate people. They already have if they're already a Kansas person, they already have a license in Kansas. But what for their postmaster's person from an out of state
So they already have a license as an APRN in
in another
state.
state?
So they graduated.
If they
only on
graduated
March
before, they would have started, so all they have to have is 500 hours.
Okay.
And most of what we see come in has 500 hours. Now 750, that would be a little bit different, but again, they would have started before March 1st. We tried to clarify it with the cutoff of, you started before 500. You start on or after March 1st, 750.
Janelle.
I was just gonna say, I've gotten a lot of questions just because of the education aspect, and we've done the same thing with the clinical hours. The ones that are already in progress, again, are the 500, but we had some that were getting ready to start. And it was gonna be like right after the 301 date. And what we told them the same thing, that it would be up to the program, since they admitted them. That now that the change, that they could add clinical hours to the program that they're in, and a lot of them are looking at doing that to help. Until they can get something, some of them may just not accept Kansas students after this, if they don't want to increase the hours or have something available, but they'll do the same thing they do for the semester hours, is they'll add. And make sure they get the credit hours they need in clinical, so that they can get that Kansas licensure.
Okay. Any further discussion about this? Thank you for getting us a clean copy with the final product that we can use for our programs.
I do have one question.
yeah.
How is the March 1st deadline arrived at being mid-semester for most of these academic programs?
That was in the regulation. I don't know exactly where it's at here, but it talks about, after March 1st, 2025, the clinical component shall consist of at least 750. And you have to understand, and a lot of people do not understand unless you're probably working for the board of nursing. It takes probably 9 to 12 months to get changes made. So when we started down the path with these, that was a ways out. It was actually a ways out. But we have no control on how fast these move through the process, because they go through several other agencies. And again, we only have control over ours. So yes, it sounds very soon, but it was probably a year and a half out when we started this. So, and you can't just, as you get closer, say, oh my gosh, it's January and the board's ready to adopt these, so let's just go in and change that date. Okay, you can't do that without starting the whole process over again. So,
I was just curious from the history part of it. Yeah.
so I hope that answers your question.
Okay, we don't need to make a motion to that, but, okay. Thank you. Next is updating organizations for approval of CE for recertification, and I believe this is for the nurse midwives.
Yes.
Yeah, the nurse midwife started the conversation. I'm a clinical nurse specialist and the NACNS is not an approved provider either. I think there's a lot. Personally, I just finished 25 credit hours of pharmacology. And then when I printed the certificates, found out that none of them count for Kansas after spending $150. So now I have to restart the process. I think we're missing a lot of professional organizations. And I wish they were in there, but nurse midwives aren't accepted in either our NACNS.
I had, let's see, I don't have it in front of me right now. I had worked with Kara because she actually, I think, was the one that brought this forward 3 months ago on some wording, and I don't know why I can't find it. I found it. But anyway, we wanted to look at the wording, and could we, instead of listing all of those organizations that might offer C&E, I mean, that would be never ending, and it would be changing all the time. And so we don't like to get that specific in the regulations, just because, again, it would never be current and we'd always be looking at it. So we were looking at the language of, could we put something in there that just talks about.
Carol, I have the email if you want to see it.
Thank you. I have it. Oh, here we go. I talked with Kara. And could we redo it to say, here's 3 different options. Offerings presented by or formerly approved by national organizations that certify advanced practice registered nurses. Because again, now we now have the requirement, because of full practice authority, that they have to be nationally certified. So we can maybe tie some stuff back to that. Or it could say maybe offerings presented by national APRN certifying bodies or those approved by said bodies. Or another option would be continuing education offerings presented by national organizations that certify advanced practice registered nurses, or those offerings specifically approved by those certifying bodies. In other words, we're trying to tie it to the certifying bodies and what they accept. Does that make sense to everybody? Instead of just
No, I was going to say, I like the second one because I know that the NACNS actually contracts companies to do theirs based on cost. And I think probably a lot of the organizations do. I think that sounds like a great idea.
the rest of the committee, the second one that she chose is offerings presented by national APRN certifying bodies or those approved by said bodies. That's the one that she's talking about.
I would think that would cover everything.
So which one? Because I can bring a draft back next time then that will have that language and everything.
Is everybody in agreement with that one?
So does that exclude if they are attending CE offerings that are not national, that are, more state or?
Well, remembering they always have the option to submit an individual offering approval.
That's true.
Yeah, and I review all those. I'll tell you, not very many of those get denied for the most part. So that's an option, or if it would be approved by any other board of nursing in the nation, we accept that.
Okay.
Or if it's approved by ANCC, that's a big national one, we accept those. I mean, those do not even have to submit an IOA. So, I mean, I think there's lots of options.
Yeah.
And anything that would be already approved by our Board of Nursing would
Fall under the.
would fall under that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so we like that. You'll bring that to our June meeting for a reading and approval?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay. For number 5 is feedback on KAR 60-11-104A.
Yes, and I think, Kelly, were you the one that brought this last time? You had questions about the language that says any drug that is intended to cause an abortion. I think maybe you had questions about that or wanted it expanded a little bit.
Let me look at. what
That's
page is that?
actually on page 25. It's 60-11-104A. That's the prescriptive orders for the 3 roles of APRNs, except CRNAs.
My concern is that there are drugs that are used as part of abortion procedures that are also used for multiple other things. That sometimes if that name of that medication can be flagged out by somebody and say you know, and claim something. And you said before that it wasn't their language, it was.
It's not, that's
statute,
the
so-
language that's directly
I
out
just-
of the statute. And I will tell you, that's language that is put in a lot
of
of
things.
bills, that particular language.
I mean, part of it is just, I think that we need to say that that's problematic language in the way it's written
Understood.
and the way it's misinterpreted by a lot of people.
I think there's something good.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that everything's a change there. Okay. Okay, on to new business. Number 1 is listing of CNM's license online. Chelsea Gleason requested this.
Is Chelsea, anybody, Chelsea? I don't know Chelsea. I did have an email asking to put this on there. He's not actually
Feedback. So this has to do with nurses, not even KSBN, and how they're listed on that site, which we do not control.
We do not, yeah. Because we tend to list them maybe a little bit different on ours. That's the problem. We have several verification systems. And nurses is the national one, so that's gonna have terminology across the nation, okay? It's not maybe gonna have specific for Kansas, a little bit language specific for Kansas. And we can't do anything about nurses. So I think we kind of look with what we have. If they would rather look at ours to see exactly the language, they're certainly welcome to do that. I don't think ours is gonna go away anytime, but we give information to nurses. So that's how nurses gets their information is from us, but they just have certain terminology that they use and that I think is part of the problem, but we can't do anything about nurses.
But it was a problem, it has been a problem related to people being able to get malpractice coverage in some places. So is it those insurance entities who are not willing to talk to you guys? Because when it was brought to the Board of Nursing said we'd be happy to talk to them. And I think Adrian said he'd be happy to talk to somebody but the insurance companies were saying no.
So they check nurses or they check hours? That's what I'm trying to figure out is,
I'm not sure, and I remember looking up myself on there.
because I mean, I know Adrian's very willing to talk to them. But I don't know if they're going to nurses or if they're going to our site. I'm not clear on that. Yeah, that's Chelsea.
Yeah, and Adrian, or, I'm sorry, Colton. We're sure that, Chelsea's not on the,
Chelsea Gleason,
to be moved over.
No.
No, okay, okay, well, if it comes about, again, we can discuss in June. Next was, oh, sorry,
No,
Michelle, no,
No.
okay. Women's health specialist certification.
yes, this is Carol again. You know, we have national certification that we now require. And we have kind of those that we've already approved, and we did that, oh my gosh, probably 3 months before the implementation date of full practice authority. So I don't remember what that date is. I'm sorry. So we do have, you know, the common national ones that we approve. And so if those come across on an application as listed as one that they're certified for, it's no problem. Okay, we had someone who asked for a new one for us to consider it. And I don't know if any of you remember or were involved at that point, but we actually used National Council's kind of some of their criteria to look at national certification and what we approve. You know, it's kind of done nationally across, and it picks up all of the common ones that we all know of. Okay, so I did some looking about the certified women's health specialist. It's through Evergreen certification. And it's more than just nurses. You'd be aware of this. It could be physical therapists, physical therapy assistants, occupational therapists, occupational therapy assistants, chiropractors, physician assistants, physicians, registered dietitians. It kind of goes on a little bit. So it is not unique to advanced practice. For that reason, it doesn't meet a lot of those criteria. And, you know, I think the fact that you can have all of these other disciplines that would carry this certified women's health specialist, if they take this course and pass it, it's not probably national standards of APRN. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And just to let you know, there is a national women's health certification. So it's not like this person could never get a national certification in women's health. It is, I think, through NCC. I think is the one through it. So there is a national certification for APRNs through that has women's health. So I just wanted to bring it to see whether you wanted it added to our list or not. I don't know what your thoughts are, but it's not unique to APRNs. It would include a lot of other disciplines too.
I don't see that it would be a benefit for Kansas to have that. Others do.
Yeah, I agree. It's only an 18-hour continuing education course, it looks like, which isn't not universal for all types. Like, it just doesn't make sense as an APRN for me. I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to the considerations and requests for clarification on KAR 60-17-101. Tracy Davis. If you want to come up to the table. And this starts on page 26. You're right there's fine.
And thanks for having me on the agenda today. So I just want to ask for some clarification on these new regulations that came out in January. specifically for, different specialty tracks and the interdisciplinary preceptor. We have some concern because the number of hours that, are kind of blanket. And so it says 750, and then you can use an interdisciplinary preceptor. So, for my program, which is a psych mental health program, we like to use interdisciplinary preceptors to help our students learn psychotherapy skills and that sort of thing. And so, some of the standards that we follow would be that it's better to sequence that earlier in the program rather than later. And also some of the tracks that we have, they would not be able to benefit from having an interdisciplinary preceptor because they would only be completing 750 hours. So they wouldn't be able to use a interdisciplinary preceptor after that, because I don't think anybody would want to stay around and do more practicum hours just to have an interdisciplinary experience. So what we would like to ask is this something that we can get some clarification on, that, you know, hey, do we just send you a letter saying we have a specialty that requires some flexibility in that, and can we get an approval that way? Or is there some other way that we can make that flexible?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know that that's an option. I guess I had a question when you list on number one where it says a postgraduate certificate. So they already have an MSN,
Yes,
but they're not an APRN.
correct.
So what is their MSN?
Be in education, for example,
So not advanced practice.
correct. But they would become a nurse practitioner in the program.
So it's initial licensure for.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that there's some flexibility in the new regulations. Did you guys have time to, I mean, I know Washburn was one of the supporting programs. I believe that we had a letter for the APRN changes.
I don't know about that.
Okay, yeah. I know that they submitted comments and they came to the public hearing and shared those comments, and those comments did go to the board, you know, when in that January packet when they did the adoption of them.
I just feel like it's a little bit in conflict with KAR 60-17-105, which requires us as faculty to design our programs in a way that we feel is most supportive in scaffolding our students.
I guess my question would be, what interdisciplinary would you have them spending times with for clinical that would not be an APRN or an approved provider that they could have clinical hours with?
So in the new regs, it says that, you know, if they're a licensed clinical person, then we could use them. And so for psych mental health, we would like to be able to use therapists, licensed clinical therapists.
Were you using them before with the 500 regulation?
Well, what we did was they would have a preceptor of record that was appropriate one that according with the regs, like a physician or nurse practitioner. And then they would, you know, be able to spend some time in the clinic if they were in like a group practice and get some time with them if they had other providers, but they were supervised still by the nurse practitioner or the physician.
So they could continue to do that, correct?
Yes,
If they were doing it with the 500 rule, so it wouldn't change for the 750.
no, but it's still difficult. We're just trying to relieve some barriers. So for example, licensed clinical therapists, they can have their own practice and they may not have an APRN working in there.
So before, for the 500 requirement, were you using those people?
No,
Okay.
Tracy, I think other programs did,
I think it goes back to with full practice authority, where we want their clinical hours. Yeah, do other members have any thoughts on that?
we just have so few preceptors to choose from, so we're just trying to, you know, find a way to make that better.
I think a lot of it goes back to us going to full practice. I don't know that I have a simple answer for this one either. Other than, you know, under the 500 hours, we had the same regulations of who they could be precepted by. Now we're just increasing by 250 more hours, but not really abandoning that. I know for nurse practitioners and family practice, there's been times we wanted to use PAs. But again, until they hit the 750 hours, they can't do interdisciplinary. Now, as you said, the preceptor of record might be part of that practice, where you can expand there, but I mean, other than that, I can't think of any way around this right now without going back and changing the regulation completely.
So is there a rationale for 750 hours before you can use an interdisciplinary preceptor?
The NTF report by NOM, which has been with what year did they get updated? 21, 22. They went to 200, or I mean, they went to 750 hours. So programs who are using that as their additional guidance have probably already gone to the 750 hours. Again, when we pulled the programs across Kansas, most were already doing 750 hours in their NP programs.
I'm talking about for when they can use an interdisciplinary preceptor.
Yeah.
Is there a rationale for why it has to be after 750 hours?
Because that is the specialty and preparation for their degree.
So the MSN without APRN students would not be able to do that.
Are you asking about number 2, the specialty tracks for MSN or DMP prepared APRNs?
Yes, the number 1 under number 1.
Oh, number 1 under number 1. Postgraduate MSN students who are not yet APRNs, because they're going for initial licensure. So after March, if they start a program after March 1st of 2025, they will be required to have 750 clinical hours. And interdisciplinary could not start until after 750. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's gonna differ much from what you were doing before with the required 500 hours. As long as the preceptor of record meets the requirements.
So you were saying then, like Dr. Davies had indicated, looking at limited observational preceptors and such in these interdisciplinary areas, but you had indicated, so the preceptor of record, so if the preceptor of record, let's say hypothetically, uses a specific therapist, which she refers a lot of her patients to, and she feels confident and communicates with that therapist, if she's willing to co-sign if it's not in her physical practice?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the preceptor of record is responsible for providing the direct clinical time with the student.
I was just thinking back on the, the family practice side, it's not unheard of that you have a student in an orthopedic office that heavily uses as a PA, a very astute PA that is one of the practicing people that if a physician who is the preceptor of record supervises,
It's usually in the same practice. So if the therapist is in the same practice site, I guess when you make site visits, Janelle, how far, I mean, what is the leniency there? I mean, it's pretty much the preceptor is responsible for those clinical hours, signing off that the student obtained them.
Yes. That's what we look at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think your accrediting bodies would feel the same. I mean, I can't speak for the accrediting bodies, but when you look at the standards for accreditation and how they define preceptors. I don't think we have much more we can expand on this. Outside of what the regulation and as it was approved. Okay. Sorry.
So I have one other thing, and that was about the faculty preceptor role, just how the regulation is stated. It seems to not be very clear on whether faculty can be a preceptor when they're employed as faculty. It just says if you're employed as faculty, then you can't be a preceptor. It doesn't say anything more than that, so it kind of reads like if you're an employed faculty member anywhere in any capacity, that you can't be a preceptor.
No, so if the faculty member has faculty practice, then during their faculty practice time, they're employed by a clinic, hospital, and they would not be in their faculty role. So then they would be an independent provider employed by whatever XYZ setting and not in the role as faculty. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay,
So, I guess in like if there's there's another regulation that says you don't have to be directly in the same place as the student, so if faculty were the preceptor of record and the student needed more hours at that clinic, they're still the preceptor of record, but they may not be directly with the student at that time.
then they wouldn't be the preceptor of record. Whoever the preceptor at the site is would be the preceptor.
So even if they're not there on a specific day, even if the regulation says they don't have to be directly there, like they don't have to be on the same site.
Are you saying preceptor or faculty?
If the faculty member is the preceptor of record, but it's just the preceptor of record in general.
So as the preceptor, they would have to be at the same site. As the faculty member, they would not have to be. So if they're the preceptor, they are directly with the student.
They can't serve as the faculty and the preceptor at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, they
So-
could be the faculty of that course. But during their practice time, they can serve as a preceptor, but they can't oversee as a faculty person, somebody else to do their preceptive time with the student. I don't know if that just made sense, but yeah. What I hear you saying is there's got to be separation of when that person is in the faculty role, because as a faculty person overseeing a preceptor with their student, it needs to be a different preceptor. If they're the faculty for the class as well as the preceptor, they're basically, I guess they are basically overseeing their own, but they are only with them in precepted hours during their clinical time.
okay, that was just the clarification that I was looking
Yeah,
for.
Yes.
right.
But if there's a different preceptor at the clinical site and the faculty member is also a nurse practitioner at that site, but not there that day, then the preceptor is the preceptor that is there with them. The faculty member who's not there can't designate, well, somebody else is the preceptor for today because I'm teaching my class. It has to be whoever has direct oversight of the student. So they would just need 2 preceptor contracts.
But it's okay for I just want to clarify again, it's okay for the faculty member to be the preceptor of record when they're in clinic, and they're also the faculty member of the course that they're teaching that the student is in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when they're precepting, they're an independent provider doing their provider time, not faculty role.
Okay, I just want to clarify
Yes.
what employees faculty meant.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, faculty don't have defined 8 to 5 hours sometimes. But,
Most times.
right, yeah, most of the time.
It's kind of hard to turn off your faculty brain. when
Yes.
you're in the students as a preceptor.
Yes, but, I mean, I think a large majority of faculty act as preceptors because again, back to your comment of there's not enough preceptors and faculty often are doing, faculty practice roles. And it's a great evaluative mode too, to evaluate the student, but you have to separate yourself from faculty to being preceptor. Yes, is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Then we are on to our 5-year regulation review.
Yeah, and not to, I know that you've just finished a process where you looked at the regulations and could they be revoked and, what would be the impact on public safety and everything like that. This is different than that. Not to confuse you, however, I'm suggesting that perhaps you hold off on this because I'm gonna have some discussion with the board tomorrow to see if there's some way that we could put those two together. And I don't want you to start down this path if if the board makes the decision to do that. I just think it's very confusing the way it is now. And, so I was gonna talk to the board about that tomorrow. It's whatever you all want, but.
I think it would be great to move that to the June agenda and get an update after you talk to the board tomorrow,
Okay.
unless somebody feels differently. Okay. So we'll add that to our June agenda, Jill, and then, anything else specifically that we need to move to?
May I,
Tracy?
the listing of CNN licenses online, when I just searched myself on the Kansas site, not the nurse CIS site, it says a license type is nurse midwife. It doesn't say a license type as an APRN. And I was just wondering, is there any way? I mean, in other regulations, it says that nurse midwife is a subtype of an APRN license. Is one of the roles of an APRN license, but is there any way if somebody would pull up that site, copy it off, put it in an application that it would on this page say APRN on there? And again, I don't know that it would help with the problem this person had. I think it was a company issue coming in, but if that's a simple thing.
I don't
Could that
know.
be considered?
I can ask questions. I don't know.
Because that's the only thing that I can come up with.
Hey, this is Kim. I have a question that's not related to anything on our current agenda. I recently saw that Kansas was on the list of potential states moving to an APRN multi-state licensure. Do we have any information on that?
This is Carol, I can update you. That bill did not even get a hearing in committee this year. So nothing's gonna happen to it this year. I know that there's been some work being done behind the scenes by like National Council and stuff like that. To have conversations with, certain individuals within the state. So that hopefully maybe next year it can come back and gain a little bit more traction than it did this year. The only bill that's over there that has had traction, and I think it might be most of the way through, is the CRNA prescriptive authority bill. The CRNA's bill originally, when it started, was for full practice. And it kind of got amended through the process to be prescriptive authority only now. So I haven't looked like yesterday or today to see where it's at, but the APRN conference is not gonna go anywhere this year.
Okay, thank you.
But if you would like contact information for the person from this National Council of State Boards of Nursing, I can give you her contact information. She'd be happy to share. Nicole Lozano's. And she'd be happy to talk to any sub-organization of APRNs, because she talked to CAPN and she talked to the Kansas affiliate of ACNM about it.
National Council, I'll just let you know, and Nicole does a lot of the work throughout all the states that are thinking of doing this. It's not just Kansas. But they can talk more national wide than like we can in Kansas, because we pretty well look within Kansas. So it's very common that they come in anytime there's a bill like this. They helped us with the nurse licensure compact years ago also, to get, and they can bring lobbyists in where we cannot. So that's a big point there. But yeah, Nicole would be a great one. She's really good.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for discussion today before we adjourn? Or any other items to add for our June agenda? Okay, then we will adjourn. Thank you for everyone who joined us online and in person.
Thank you.